Hello, you are welcome to SEED Matters, Special Education and Disability Matters. This is a platform where we discuss everything about something and something about everything in special education and disabilities. Today, we are going to continue from where we stopped in our last video. Last video, we discussed learning disabilities. Today, we are going to discuss types of learning disabilities. But before then, what is this learning disabilities? In the last video, it was highlighted that learning disability is not intellectual disabilities. That learning disability is actually a disability in learning, which affects the basic processes involved in learning, like reading, writing, listening, spelling, and calculations. So today, we'll be talking about different types of learning disabilities. These basic ones like the dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, auditory processing disorder, visual processing disorder are the ones we're going to be talking about now. Please, if you have not subscribed, subscribe, click the notification button so that our subsequent videos will be getting to you. So dyslexia, which can also be called developmental dyslexia or word blindness, is one of the types of learning disabilities. It is synonymous with reading disabilities, as affected persons have great difficulty in reading or understanding what is read. The dyslexic may have problem understanding written words. These are people that when they are looking at letters, they cannot easily link sound with the letters or letters with sound. That is a problem with phonemic awareness. Some people describe this disorder as when letters are jumping, dancing. So when you ask kids to read, they'll be looking at these letters, trying to make meaning out of them. These words don't seem to make sense to them because in their head, like I said, it is a neurological difference, a brain difference. The configuration of the brain in persons with learning disability is different from the other regular kids. As a result of that, when they look at words, it's either the word is jumping, is dancing around, it does not just make meaning to them. So the words sometimes may even transpose, or the B will look like a D, or will look like a P. All these make reading difficult for children or persons with dyslexia. So they actually have word blindness. They are seeing the word, but then they cannot make meaning out of it. It is not as a result of visual problem, no. Their vision is intact, but the part of the brain that is supposed to interpret what is seen is not interpreting it right. Is seeing the letters differently. The sound of the letter does not make sense. The letter configuration does not make sense. As a result, they cannot read it easily. So this group basically are the greater number of children with learning disabilities. That is why it seems dyslexia is the synonym of learning disabilities. No, there are other groups of kids with learning disabilities that are not dyslexic. Persons with dyslexia find it difficult to read. Letters and words don't make sense to them. They find it difficult to link letters with sound or sound with letters. They find it difficult to have that phonemic awareness. And in most cases, their level of intelligence is saying something contrary. That is why parents and teachers find it difficult to believe that a child that is intelligent or that is above average intelligent is finding it difficult to read. So the next one we'll be looking at is dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is a handwriting problem. Handwriting problem that cannot be explained based on the child's observable potential. This inexplainable poor handwriting makes it difficult for affected children to write letters, figures, or write within a defined space. The way we have lines on a paper or on a book, they either write upwards or they write downwards, or they form the letters the other way around, or they form the letters awkwardly. It is a problem in the brain. The inability of the brain to coordinate the fine motor skills and gross motor skills to the extent the child will be able to write what is seen, copy correctly, or write within a defined space, or even form the letters and the figures the way they are supposed to be formed. And sometimes they get agitated because they know they are not forming it right. But then to correct it by themselves is very difficult. So it makes them to be agitated. It makes them to be frustrated. It is not their fault. It is the way their brain is wired. It is something beyond their control. Even when they know what they are writing is not like that of others, they cannot help it. That is dysgraphia, poor handwriting, dysgraphia, inability to write or write well, inability to write within a specified space, inability to form letters or form figures the way they are supposed to be formed, inability to write even from right to left, inability to write following the writing pattern. That is the problem with dysgraphic kids. The dysgraphic kids are known with illegible handwriting, poor paragraph formation, punctuation errors, multiple spelling errors, letter case insensitivity. Sometimes these kids can even read well, but when it comes to writing it, that is where the problem lies. Most of them will prefer to speak than to write. Once it comes to writing, because they know their difficulty in writing, it makes them anxious, it frustrates them. So they don't want to go through the hassle of writing or putting things down. They prefer to dictate or to use their mouth because they are either averagely intelligent or above average intelligent. So their problem is basically writing. Sometimes they can also combine this writing problem with dyslexia. But basically, the writing aspect is more prominent than the other disability aspects. The next one is dyscalculia. This is a mathematical disability. In this case, affected persons have difficulty in understanding mathematical concepts and doing mathematical calculations. They have problem with numbers. Once they see numbers, they get anxious, they get agitated, and in most cases, it frustrates them. So they don't like dealing with numbers. The dyscalculic are seen as having poor number sense. Numbers don't make sense to them the way it makes sense to regular kids. They see numbers and interpret numbers differently. They have poor number sense in computation, in timing, in money management, in even spatial relationship. The way you say left, right, or even north, west, east, and south. They have problem in telling time. They have problem in estimating time. They have problem with money, giving change, making change, buying something. They have problem with mathematical concept like greater than, less than. They have problem in counting. Sometimes they cannot count even in twos, in threes. The way you can tell kids to count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. It is difficult for them. Counting in threes, 3, 6, 9, it is difficult for them. So this undue difficulty in dealing with number is called dyscalculia. And these kids are affected differently on the continuum of mild, severe, profound, and so on. And some of them combine this poor number sense or mathematical disability with other forms of disability, like part of dyslexia, part of dysgraphia. Some, they cannot write well, having dysgraphia, and they cannot also do math, having dyscalculia. Some can write well when it comes to other things, but when it comes to numbers, they start having issues, meaning it is not dysgraphia. It is either dyscalculia together with dyslexia. These things, they have the way they intertwine. No two kids are affected the same way. Now we're going to talk about auditory processing disorder. Auditory processing disorder is part of learning disabilities. These kids find it difficult to understand what is said. And it is not because of hearing impairment or deafness. They can hear. But what is heard does not make sense in the brain. The brain interprets what is heard differently. Like we have established on Seed Matters that learning disability is not intellectual disabilities. The intelligence is intact, but it is a difference in the way the brain interprets what is seen, what is heard, or what is coming out. So it is the difference in the neurological configuration of the kid that is interfering with the learning process. And of course, you know, when it is difficult for a child to read, learning process will be affected. When it is difficult for a child to write, learning process will be affected. When it is difficult for a child to understand what is being said, in the case of auditory processing disorder, learning is difficult. So kids with auditory processing disorders can hear, but they have great difficulty in understanding what is being said or what is heard. And like I said before, it is not as a result of hearing impairment. It's just that the part of the brain that is responsible for the interpretation of what is heard is not interpreting it like the regular kids. Then the next one is visual processing disorders. The visual processing disorder is like the auditory processing disorder, but in this case, it has to do with the inability of the brain to interpret what is seen the way it should be interpreted. Visual cues and visual information is not well interpreted in the brain. So these two are more or less sensory disability, and they are part of learning disability because they actually interfere with the child's learning. So we've been able to talk about dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, auditory processing disorder, visual processing disorder. Mind you, we are discussing learning disabilities and the various types of learning disabilities. And we have said that these learning disabilities is as a result of a difference in the brain or neurological difference that interferes with the child learning processes, meaning the intelligence is intact, but when the child comes to the classroom to learn becomes difficult. So please do not forget to like, to share, and to subscribe so that our subsequent videos will get to you. Once again, my name is Ebi Carlo Ubo on Seed Matters. Thank you.